All right, welcome everybody. We are about to get started. Westbank real estate investors, by a show of hands, whose is it? Their very first meetup. Very first meetup. Everybody clap it up for our first time guests. So on this evening, we are very excited for today's guests. If you have ever had an opportunity to interact with a realtor, if you ever had any opportunities to interact with an investor, you would know that it is a pleasure when you get the opportunity to work with a realtor that is also an investor, right? In most cases, there's a gap and there's a curve when you have to try to explain to an investor what the realtor world is seeing, and then you have to explain to a realtor what the investor world is seeing. So it's always a pleasure and always a plus to have a superhuman that can actually do both. So we want to welcome our guest tonight, Angel Shulterbrant.
Shulterbrant.
So Angel, how did you even get started in the real estate industry?
So we were closing on our house back in 2014. And we're leaving the closing, and my agent turned to me and said, "Have you ever thought about a career in real estate?" And I'm like, why would this lady ask me this? Like, I've never given her any inclination that I have a desire to be in real estate. So I brushed her off, because at the time I worked in oil and gas. I was making a ton of money, unlimited overtime. I was good. And so I'm like, nah, I'm good. Fast forward to 8 months later, I walk into work. They're like, get your stuff. We're having to lay you off. It was me and 10,000 other people company-wide that got laid off like that. And so that showed me that your job is not secure. So after that, I thought about it, and then you make the mistake of telling certain people that are close to you what you want to do, and so they tend to project their fears onto you. So everybody was like, oh, you shouldn't do it. You have to meet strangers in random houses. It's not consistent income. So what did I do? Went and got another job. On that job for 2 years. In 2 years, that company gave me an 88-cent raise. They could have kept that. Like, what was that going to do for me, right? So the second time that they brought me my little sheet of paper, they slide it across the desk to you, I went home and told my husband, that's it. I just want to do real estate. So I started in March of 2017.
And what was first steps? Was it straight investment, or as a realtor, what was first steps?
Being a realtor first. So I just signed up. Actually, that same night, I signed up for the course that night. And I gave myself exactly 30 days, and I finished in exactly 30 days. I would leave work tired after working on somebody else's job, and I would come home. I fell asleep so many nights on the couch listening to my course, but I was determined to get it done. So I finished in 30 days.
Wow. So once you got licensed, tell us about that experience as far as first transactions as a realtor.
So statistically, I was told by someone who was supposed to be a mentor of mine that I probably wouldn't sell anything my first year. That was the best thing she could have said to me. I looked at her and I was like, okay. I worked as a part-time agent for 8 months out of the year, and I sold 13 houses. So I basically jumped in. I started calling everybody I knew. I started talking to all the seasoned agents in the office, letting them know, hey, I'm here, I'm hungry. I would call my broker every week, hey, who's going on vacation? And I would call that agent and say, hey, while you're on vacation, if you need anything, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And so that's how I got my very first deal. I sold a new construction doing that. And once I showed that agent that I was hungry and she knew she could trust me, all the other agents followed suit. And that's how I was able to kind of grow my business.
So tell us a little bit more about that. So for the people that either are for the investors that's bringing realtors onto their team, being hungry, what does that hustle look like from day to day?
Constantly just searching for properties for you, making sure that they're out at events like this so that they can meet as many wholesalers as possible and get on their list and pass those properties on to their investors. Scouring the MLS, because believe it or not, there's actually deals on the MLS. I've actually purchased deals from the MLS. So just being aligned with an agent that's gonna hustle and work hard for you, and they're also gonna be able to help you analyze numbers to let you know if it's a good investment or not.
What's the example of that as far as analyzing? Because in the past, you can't have the experience where they send you the comps and tell you what a flip might sell for. But if we go in the extra step, what is a hungry agent? What does that look like?
So number one is verifying that after repair, right? I get so many after repair values and so many estimated construction costs that are like way off. So you want to be with an agent that can help you kind of gauge what it's going to cost to renovate it, what it's going to actually sell for, and how many days on market the property is expected to sit. Because time is your enemy when you have a loan out. Like, you don't want to be in an area where your days on market's 120 days plus. You want to be able to get in and get out of that property quick.
Right. So walk us through those 13 deals in 8 months. So when those agents were going on vacation, what exactly was it that you were doing differently that maybe other agents in the office were not doing? How were you taking advantage of those absences?
So I was basically just letting them know that I'm there for them, but going the extra mile for their client. So if they sent me a lead, immediately I'm on the phone with them. I'm on the phone with them, and they're going to get a scheduled text or a scheduled email from me pretty much every other day, just consistently following up, just to make sure that I'm actually performing for those agents. Now, if it didn't work out, the client just ignored me, then hey, there was nothing I could do about it. But I didn't want to be the reason not following up with the clients that they're trusting me with, because a lot of times the agents were paying for these leads, or these may have been referrals of referrals from people that trusted them. So I didn't want them to stop sending that agent business because I wasn't following through.
That's good. So you were nurturing leads for other realtors, not only doing open houses and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yep. So that's awesome to hear that you were able to service agents in that new construction with that experience. Well, tell us about how you make the segue from hungry realtor to investor. Was it any of those experiences, or was it something else that led to that?
So it was actually something else. So when I bought my house in 2014, the previous owner of the house, we were all standing outside, and I happened to mention the lot next door. And he was like, oh, that guy's not going to sell to you, blah, blah, blah. So after being an agent for a couple of years, I was like, you know what? I've saved a little bit of money. Let me just take a stab at this. Let me see if I can find this guy and see if I can work something with him. And I was able to actually find him, negotiate a deal, negotiate quite a bit of grass lien down. Like, I don't know if y'all know, but the parish will charge you an arm and a leg just for cutting the grass. So I was able to go in and negotiate that down. And once I closed on that deal, I was addicted. I was like, I have to keep doing this. So that's pretty much like what started me on my investment journey.
And which parish?
St. Bernard.
Okay. That first deal, what did it look like to get in touch with that owner, and what was that conversation like to put it under contract?
So I actually called the assessor's office. And I'm like, hey, I'm inquiring about this property. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Are there like a ton of back taxes on it? Like, what's going on with it? Has it been sold? Has, Civic Source picked it up yet? So they gave me the timeline for when that was set to happen. It was about 5 months out where Civic Source was going to take it because he hadn't been paying taxes on it. So coincidentally, the lady says, oh, I know this family. Would you like his phone number?
Wow.
I'm like, sure. Like, it can't be this easy, right? So I call up the guy and I introduce myself. I'm like, hey, I live next door. Like, I really want to buy this property. And he like pretty much brushed me off. And so I followed up with him for like 2 months consistently. I called him at least once a week. He would always have an excuse. Oh, I'm so busy with the grandkids. I'm doing this. I wasn't feeling well. So finally one day he agrees to meet me at the coffee shop. So I go meet him at the coffee shop. We talk about price, and he signs the contract.
Wow.
I am so excited. I cannot believe I have a property under contract. Send it to the title company. I get a phone call. There's 5 siblings that own the other half of this property. So you need to get all 5 adult children to agree to sign this contract. And I was like, okay. Because I love a challenge. I'm like, sure. So I'm trying to get in touch with the kids. He's like, oh, I don't really talk to this one. I don't know, the phone number's always changing, da 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 da. So I'm sitting in a closing, and I'm talking to one of my loan officers about this. I'm like, man, I don't know what I want. You know, I got to find these people. I want this property. So he's like, what's the family's name? So I tell him. He's like, I went to school with those kids.
Oh, man.
He was like, I'm going to call his sister right now. So he calls his sister up, and she's like, oh, yeah. It took me about a month and a half to 2 months to get everybody to finally sign that doggone contract. But it finally happened, and I stuck in there, and I was able to negotiate quite a bit, so I was able to get a pretty good deal on it.
So for the person that's listening to it, or the person that might watch this episode that might say, oh, she got lucky twice, what's the actual skill set that you think that you apply that kind of creates that luck for you?
Follow up and hustle and determination. I was getting that property by any means necessary. Like, it was happening for me. And I was prepared to wait it out as long as I had to, talk to as many people as I had to.
And what was the exit on that property? So that was the first property you got under contract as an investment. So what was the exit on that one?
So I wanted to keep it forever, but my husband's in the audience. He made me sell it. And for good reason. So I was able to sell that property, actually flip that property for a pretty decent profit. So I ended up selling it.
And what was next after that? So that was the first one. There was blood in the water with Angel the shark out there in the ocean looking for the next hunt. So what was next?
More lots until my husband said I had to stop buying them.
Okay, all right. And so on the investment side, what was it about lots that attracted to you at that time?
The ability to, if you buy them right, the ability to flip them in a very quick time frame. So all of my lots that I flipped, with the exception of the one in St. Bernard, I held that one the longest. I held for maybe like a year and a half, and still made quite a bit of money on them.
Why 12 months versus 3, 6, or 9? Was that strategic?
Not necessarily. It was just timing of the market. So I just kind of paid attention to the market, looked at what was selling, what it was selling for, and decided to just kind of hold it. And I'm always watching the market for any of my properties. Like, any of my properties can go up for sale at a moment's notice if it looks like they're going to sell, right? So I would just wait, just kind of keep checking, like, oh, okay, lots of selling over here, so let me just pop mine on the market. And, I mean, I was paying cash for them, so I'm like, if it doesn't sell, I just get to keep my land. But it ended up working out, so I was able to actually sell all of mine.
Okay, and talk to us about marketing strategy. So the first one, did you keep calling the tax assessor the tax assessor offer to see who else the lady knew to get more lots, or how else will you get more lots?
So I actually ended up buying a lot of them from wholesalers. So actually my second lot I actually bought from Steve. Shout out to Steve.
Nice.
So I actually bought that from him, and then 2 of them I actually purchased on the MLS. So again, there are deals on the MLS. Bought them on the MLS, held them for a year, and turned around and was able to sell them.
So for the person that says, I don't have time to find deals, that's an excuse. So they should network with wholesalers, and if they're a realtor, they still can find deals on the MLS.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Hey everybody, I'm Emile Hurst Jr.
I'm Aussie Steve.
And we want to make sure we invite you to the Westbank Real Estate Investors Meetup every second Thursday of the month. Listen, if you're in the New Orleans area, 610 6th Street, Gretna, Louisiana, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. every single second Thursday of the month.
We know the speakers are great, but when you come here, you get to network and meet everyone as well. So make sure you get here and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel too.
If you're a real estate investor and you're not coming to this meetup, you're really missing out, because like I said, you can get all kinds of networking. The speakers are great, you learn a lot, but working the room, meeting all the new people, adding people to your network, your network is what helps you grow. So definitely, I think you could benefit from it. Yeah.
Back to the meetup.
So you had so much success with lots that you decided to do a full gut renovation that you perfected, and it's complete, and it was done under budget and on time. Tell us that story.
I wish. So backing it up a little bit, so I actually found a flip in Chalmette, like straight up cosmetic, floors, paint. And what's interesting is when I got the email, I immediately called one of my clients. I'm like, hey, Kevin, you need to get over here. Like, this is a great deal. Like, I ran the numbers on it. It's going to sell for this. He's like, oh, no, I just bought a lot. I'm pretty tapped out. As soon as I hung up the phone with him, I'm like, what are you doing? This is your deal. So I'm like, am I really doing this? So I hit up the wholesaler. I'm like, hey, I want to go see it. I went to see it, walked the property, felt good about it. So I made him an offer. He put me on ice for like 3 days. I think he was trying to get a cash offer I was financing, which that's fair. But I ended up getting it under contract. That project taught us, me and my husband, so much that we decided that next time we'll make things much more difficult and buy something completely gutted. So, so we bought a gutted property on the market, believe it or not. I found it on the MLS, and we went and walked it, and we both agreed that we liked it. We ran some numbers on it. And this project, if your marriage can survive a full gut reno, you have a very solid marriage, okay? We're still hanging in there. Some days are better than others, you know? But a full gut renovation is what we're working on right now. And let me tell you, the challenges that came with this project really tested me to see if is real estate really what I want to do? But every day I wake up, I pass by the property, and I feel just extremely blessed and grateful, despite all the challenges, just grateful that I get to wake up every single day and do something that I love to do. So I feel blessed, and I have to take solace in that amidst all the disasters going on around me with this project.
What was the experience with the cosmetic renovation that kind of pushed you in that direction to the full gut? Was it a good experience or a bad experience? What was it about that experience that led you in this direction with the full gut?
It was an excellent experience, actually. And honestly, it was probably a little too, I'm not going to say super easy, but it did like spoil me a little bit because this second project was nothing like the first one, nothing like it.
Yeah. Talk to us about financing. So on the cosmetic one, was it the same type of financing as with the full gut? So what was it, and how is the experience different with financing with these two different projects?
So the first one was a much smaller project, and it was my first one. So I actually used hard money for the majority of it, and the rest of the money came from me. So when I did my first deal, I really wanted to do it on my own. So I put up the down payment, small down payment, maybe around $23,000, and I borrowed the rest of the money from the bank to do the loan. The time for us to finish that project from start to selling it, like at the closing table, was only 6 months. So it was a fairly simple project. But this other one, y'all.
What was the difference? just on financing side, what's been the difference so far?
So financing was tricky. So with the financing, because it needed so much rehab, I had to be cautious with the lender, because if I would have gone over what I was, so for instance, I bought the property for $90,000. And I tried to go to the lender and borrow more than 90, and that was an issue. It would have been a bit more red tape, but I could have gotten it done. So I had to limit my budget to basically what I was paying for the house, because that would have put me in a completely different type of loan. It would have taken longer to close. So I was like, no, I can make it work with the $90,000. So that was the difference. I had to like eat a lot of the costs myself, like a lot of the soft costs, you know, the dumpster and things like that. And I was okay with that because I ran my numbers.
Yeah. On the financing side, talk to us about the draw experience. So with cosmetics, 6 months, that was in and out. This one is a little bit more long and drawn out. Are you having to fill in the gaps waiting on draws, or the draw is not enough, and you add your own cash to it? What is that experience looking like with a full gut, not a cosmetic?
So a lot of the times I did have to dip into my bank account, mainly just because if I had, let's say I had the plumber and the electrician on site, and I knew that I was gonna have to pay them $25,000, right? I would wait and try to stack my draws, so that way I'm not taking as many, So I just had to make sure that, budget-wise, I was okay to just float that cost. But my lender, like, they're phenomenal. Gone are the days of having to wait for an inspector to come out and send a report. Now you can actually do it from your phone, take pictures, take video. If I submit a draw early enough in the morning, sometimes I have the money in my account by the end of the day.
Wow.
If not, first thing in the morning. So I felt comfortable, kind of floating those costs if I had to.
And when you say stack your drawers, so for the person that's in the middle of their first flip right now, and they do have a good lender, what do you mean by that when you say stack
Like
those draw
trying
payments?
to make sure you're not taking a draw for every little thing. Like if you go and you have a painter come in and they're $3,000 and you take a draw. So most lenders charge each time you take a draw. So I try to, for instance, like trim. Like I waited to do my floors, my trim, my doors, my kitchen, things like that, to try to lump them all together so I can go to the lender with just that one draw as opposed to all those different draws. Because each time I'm paying, like, I think it's, I don't know, maybe $200 or something like that. Because they still charge you a fee to, like, even though you're self-inspecting, they still charge you a fee for an inspector, but whatever. So that's what I try to do. If you can do that. If you can't do that and you have to take the draws, it's just your first project, that's okay too. Because my first one was kind of like that. I started with what I like to call my seed money. I had about $10K left over. So we took that $10K, we did the roof, we painted the siding, replaced what pieces, and then I went to the lender and said, hey, give me my money back, give me my $10K. I just rinsed and used that $10K over and over again. So I had to take more frequent draws on that project.
Talk to us about that experience with the roof and the permit with the parish. So the permit experience period with that full gut, because with that cosmetic, was there any permits required?
No, because I didn't touch any other systems or anything.
So now with this project, now you're getting involved with permits. So as a first time experience, what was that like?
So I quickly learned that you have to have your ducks in a row to go to the permitting office. So when we bought this project, we actually bought this project like last July. The first thing we did was obviously put a new roof on it. And before we can do anything else, like my husband was literally cleaning out the shed. Like that's it. We weren't doing any like major work or anything. And we pull up to the property and bam, cease and desist.
From the parish, a cease and desist posted?
On the door. You are not allowed to do anything else until you come in and you get your permit. So I went into the permit office. I bring all my docs in. They look at it. Oh, no, you actually need this, this, this. Okay, go back and get this, this, this. Oh, no, you actually need, also you need this, this, and this. So it was it was definitely a process of figuring out specifically what they wanted from me. And once honestly, I think they just got tired of seeing my face. And then finally in January, they were like, okay, you're good to go. We'll issue. From July.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been a journey. So once they issue the permit, like we just hit the ground running. We brought in everybody. We brought in the plumber, we brought in the electrician, the HVAC guy, just tried to get through the project as quickly as possible.
So I want to make sure I understand. So you close on this property with financing in July. No work is being done from July to January only because you're waiting on permits.
Yep.
Interest charges still being charged, and now we still have to get into the construction.
Yep.
And what was that experience like? So with cosmetic rehab, that's a totally different team from a full gut. So how were you finding, vetting, and actually hiring contractors for this project, and what was that experience like?
So pretty much referrals. So I just want to thank all of my friends who are also investors. They really came through for me. That's why it's so important to have groups like this, because we can all lean on each other. I got my electrician, my HVAC guy, like pretty much everybody with the exception of the plumber, I got from talking to investor friends. So that's how I was able to build my team.
Yeah, and we're pulling all those contractors together. So you GC'd the project yourself. So all those subs were under your management. So first time, what was that experience like, having everybody on the same page and not having detailed plans to follow that management style? So what was that like?
Um, it's definitely a learning process. So one of the things that I learned out the gate, do not pay anybody until you get a W-9. Because once you pay them, they're gone. Like, they have no incentive to give you the W-9. And then also setting expectations up front. Like, hey, I am hiring you to do this specifically. I need a written estimate. I need to know your timeline so that way there's no surprises at the end. So it's just, and honestly, like, I've been leaning a lot on my husband with that too. I tend to sometimes be a little bit more soft than he is. So I was able to kind of lean on him for him to come in and be like, hey, look, like, this is what it's going to be. This is what we need you to do. Either you're going to do it or we're going to get somebody else to do it. So I'm grateful that I have him, because I honestly, I probably wouldn't have made it through this project if I didn't have him. So yeah, just setting those expectations, discussing price up front is a big one too, and collecting the appropriate documents from them.
Tell us about that W-9. What was the mistake made? That's my first time hearing about that. So why is the W-9? Well, why is the W-9 important to a project like that?
So at the
And
end
we're
of the
talking
year,
a tax W-9,
yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah. So at the end of the year, like, I'm supposed to 1099 them because they came and they did work for me, and a lot of times they just don't have it, or they just don't want to give it up because they want to operate cash only, right? So you just have to make sure that you kind of collect that stuff and set that expectation up front. Like, look, this is what I need from you. If you can't give it to me, that's okay. But unfortunately, like, you're not going to be able to work on this project.
Yeah. And what's the reason with paying up front? What was that mistake?
They don't give it to you. So I have a few people I just don't have W-9s on, and that is because I did not set that expectation up front. So now I know going forward, that's going to be one of the first things that we discuss.
Yep. So going into this project, you had to build a team. So now for your next big gut project, what does that team look like from what you learned from this project?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much going to be bringing everybody with me, with the exception of my plumber. If y'all ever find a good plumber, please let me know. They are very, very difficult to find. So my plumber's not coming with me, and my flooring guy is not coming with me. So I am going to be having to replace those members of my team. But I feel comfortable doing it because, again, I have a network of people, a network of friends that are actually doing this as well, that I know would be happy to share those resources with me. So I have no doubt I'm going to find somebody.
Yeah. And on the underwriting side, now that you've actually went through an entire process, has anything changed about the way that you underwrite a deal? I know you already were comfortable with comps, already have experience with investors, but now you being in a project like this, what's some of the metrics or numbers that you would either kind of add a contingency to or look at differently after going through this experience?
Being able to have multiple exits out of it.
Okay.
So buying at a price and renovating at a price to where I have multiple ways to get out of that project. If I buy a project and I can't get out of it at least 3 ways, I'm not buying it. So I don't ever want to get stuck in a position where my numbers are so jam tight that the only thing I can do is flip it. So that's kind of changed for me. I have to analyze the numbers and say, okay, worst case scenario, if I cannot sell this, can I then go to the lender and say, hey, let me do a DSCR loan and cash this out? And if I can't do it, I'm just not going to buy it.
Yeah. What's the third way? So flip, rental. What could be the third way to exit out of that?
So the third way for me would be putting a mortgage on it and then basically selling it, seller financing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And as far as negotiating terms with lenders from this experience, did you discover any other things that you could ask for or eliminate or reduce with getting those loans? When you talked about, for example, that $200 draw fee, is that something that you'll push back on?
Oh, absolutely.
And what else did you discover that you might want to push back on with financing fees to save money?
Point. So you can actually, like, I feel terrible saying this, but once I did my first deal, I was like, what can you do for me, you know? So I would take a property I was thinking about buying, give the breakdown to various different lenders. Here's my purchase price, my renovation costs, my after repair. What can you do for me? Here's my estimated FICO score. Tell me what you can do. Give me your best. And I would sit down. I would always reach out to maybe like 3 to 4 different lenders, sit down, look at, compare, and pick the best one for me. Or if there was one I really wanted to work with, I'd go back and be like, hey, look, this lender over here is only charging 1.5 points. You're trying to charge me 2.5. I really want to work with you, but I'm not going to pay you extra just because I like you, right? So a lot of times they'd be like, oh, I can go down, I can go down. So
Right.
don't be afraid to ask. Like, ask and let them tell you no. But you have to ask to get those fees, especially when you're dealing with hard money lenders, because they charge fees for everything.
Yeah, I agree. And some other high fees that everybody in the room is dealing with right now is insurance. So what have you learned about insurances on the flip side? And also, what are you seeing on the realtor side with insurance? How is it impacting your experience right now?
Yeah, so on the investor side, so just to give you an example, my first flip that I did was, I believe, in 2021. My insurance policy on that property was like $1,097. This project that I bought in July 2023, it's like almost $4,000. So I felt it. And as far as and even, so I have rentals as well. And I'm so nervous about what's going to happen when they renew, because I just had one that renewed and now my property no longer cash flows. And that's a very real thing that investors are dealing with in this market, and it's unfortunate. But on the agent side, it's even worse. I'm seeing buyers who may be approved to buy a house for $350 with the insurance now maybe $275, $260 is what they can afford. So it's squeezing, clients, like their pre-approval letters down quite a bit. I just did a deal, first-time home buyer. She wanted to buy a little house for $175,000. So we get the insurance quote. It was over $7,000 a year for that house. So I try to get as creative as possible. And, I hate to do it, but sometimes you have to strip a client's policy like down to bare bones just to make the numbers work. So their DTI works for them to close on the house. So honestly, things can't continue the way that they're going, because it's like we're really in a crisis right now.
Yeah, go a little bit deeper on stripping the policy down. So give us an example of that to get the cost down.
So, for instance, if it's a first-time home buyer, they probably don't need $60,000 worth of contents. So a lot of times we're able to strip it down to maybe like 20, 30,000, just temporarily. And I always tell them, once you're in the house for a little while, please because you're going to start to accumulate things over the years. Like, don't leave this at $20,000. Like, you need to be raising this up over time. But that's just one example of just kind of stripping down their contents or raising their wind and hail deductible, which is not always ideal, because if we get a storm, can they really afford to pay the deductible? So that's some examples. Or just splitting a policy and getting them like a dwelling with a separate wind and hail policy, just to try to make it work for them.
Yeah, and when you mention negative cash flow, which you're not the only one, between your clients, between your network, between other people in the industry, what are some ideas or some practices that you've been seeing people do with these negative cash flowing properties? Are they just selling them? Are they just eating it? What are you seeing in the market when they're taking these hits with these insurance costs?
I mean, it's pretty much a mixed bag. A lot of people are selling in New Orleans, specifically like the multifamily, the doubles. There's way more of those on the market now than there has been in the last couple of years. Or some people are just eating the cost. This is a very, very tough situation that we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Go ahead.
And I was going to say, if you don't want to sell your properties, maybe just ride them, because that's what I'm doing with mine. I'm just riding the wave, hoping that things get better if we make it through hurricane season.
Yep. So, marketing for your next deal, what's your plans for that next deal? We sticking with the same strategy, wholesalers, MLS, or we taking the proceeds and going to a different direction to get deals in the pipeline?
No, I think I'll stay, just networking with the wholesalers, and like I scour the MLS daily for deals, specifically in the areas that I like.
Yeah. And from the realtor perspective, what are best practices with communicating with wholesalers, in your opinion? Because there's mixed feelings with on-market, off-market practices. So from your experience, what's the best way to build those relationships with wholesalers to have them send you deals?
Number one, coming to events like this so that they can start to see you more, recognize your face, picking up the phone and having a conversation. Like, hey, you may not have anything, that fit what I'm looking for right now, but if you do get something, I have clients and I'm a buyer myself. So just, communicating and just, building that rapport with the wholesalers.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your advice to the realtor that is high performing like you, but still is hesitant to get in on the investment side? What kind of would be your new perspective that you'll share with them if they're hesitant to jump in?
Do it. Like, don't hesitate. I wasted a lot of time because I was like, oh, I don't think I could find the money. I don't think I could find the property. I had all these excuses as to why I couldn't do it instead of figuring out how I can actually do it. So get in rooms like this. If you feel more comfortable, you find somebody that you can trust, partner with somebody. Partner with somebody that's done it before. And then get your first deal done.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you have a niche area, which is St. Bernard Parish. What's the reason why?
Because it's close to my house.
Okay.
Look,
makes sense.
I like being able to go on my job site multiple times a day. So if I'm in Chalmette and I got a property in Avondale, I'm probably not going to go over there every day. And it's sad to say, but with these subcontractors, like, you almost have to stand over their shoulder and be like, that's not what I told you to do, so you need to take this all off and you need to redo it. So it's important for me to be able to be on that site every single day, or my husband on the site every single day.
Yep. So knowing what you know now, this monster gut project, what would you do differently day one?
I wouldn't have done it. I'm joking. I'm joking. So I learned a lot, but I would say what I would do differently is, honestly, I'm probably not going to do a full gut again, but if I were to do one, I would start the permitting process immediately. And now that I've gone through it, I know exactly what they're looking for, so it should go a lot smoother this time. But for me, I think I would only do another cosmetic renovation or new construction. Because on this project, I spent a lot of extra money on labor because I had to go say, hey guys, I need you to rip out all this termite damaged wood and just put it back. So I spent like a ton of extra money in labor just undoing things and redoing them.
Yeah. The plumber was the only person that is not coming to the next project. So if anybody does have a plumber, please let Angel know, because she's looking for one right now. And as far as people in the room right now, what is your buy box currently, besides it being in St. Bernard Parish? Exactly what is it that you're looking for, and what type of deals can they bring to you?
So I would prefer like a cosmetic single family home, preferably in Araby or Chalmette, maybe Miro, but I'm not going to Violet or down the road or anything. I also like Metairie, Kenner, some parts of the Westbank I might consider, and lots, because I think my husband's gonna let me start buying them again.
After that last experience, and we're about to take questions from the audience. So, advice, right? So what does 2024 Angel, what advice do you give the Angel that just received that news with the other 10,000 employees in oil and gas? What's your advice to that Angel?
You should have left sooner. You should have took a chance on yourself sooner. You know, if you're in a situation where you have a job that you don't like, they're not respecting you, they're not giving you what you're worth, you have a desire to kind of branch out and go on your own, if you're able to, take the leap. When I left my job, I got in my car, said goodbye to everybody. I got in my car and I cried like a baby. I mean, ugly cry, snot, tears, all that good stuff. And I said to myself, like, oh my goodness, like, what did you just do? Because we're programmed to think that our 2 weeks of pay is secure, it's guaranteed, but it's not. So I wiped my eyes and I said, you're either gonna sink or swim. What are you gonna do? And I haven't looked back since. So bet on yourself and just don't be afraid.
Gotcha. That's it?
That's it.
All right, questions from the audience. No, I don't. No, we're not putting the plumber on camera. We're not putting the plumber on camera. Question. Purple, then we come up to you in the front.
On this one, no, but you definitely could do it because my budget was so constricted. Because if I would have gone like $1 over, they would have treated it as like a new construction. I would have had to partner with a GC that did 3 builds in the last 36 months. It would have turned into a whole thing. Yeah, so I was limited on this one. Yeah.
And I didn't understand the question. Can you repeat it? What his question was?
Oh, no, he was just asking if I was able to essentially work in money in my budget to cover some of the interest costs that I was paying the lender every single month. But because my budget on this project was so constricted, I really didn't have the room to do that. I wish I could have, but I didn't have the room to do that.
Good question. The question is, what is your pain points with working with lenders, and what could a lender do to earn your business, right? All right.
Just making the process like a bit more streamlined. Like if I've done a deal with you, I would like to not have to keep sending you my same documents over and over again, or getting through underwriting and sending the same thing 2 to 3 times, and then just, you know, being fair on fees. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's good. We had a question on this side. Elvis.
I mean, so for live.
I got to repeat the question. So the question was, out of your 3 exit strategies, what are some of the limitations that exist with those 3 exit strategies?
So I would say in the business name. Now, I'll be honest with you. I mean, there's always going to be a risk with the do on sale, right? It's been my experience that I haven't had that issue. So it's important to have you a good attorney, you know, read over your mortgage, make sure, you know, that you're doing everything on the up and up.
That answer your question? You want to add to it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so title never transfers. Yeah.
Title does not transfer.
Title does not transfer, because that
Okay.
would probably for sure trigger the do on sale.
And for the person that doesn't understand that, what does that mean? So bond for deed is the way that you choose to, well, you may choose to do a bond for deed on the finance side, and for a title to transfer or not transfer, how do you describe that to somebody that doesn't know?
So
that
typically, like bond for deed typically means that the property remains in your name, or in my case, my business name, until the buyer meets the terms. So when you do a bond for deed, you're able to set your terms, you're able to set your interest rate, how long you want to carry the note for, and if you have a balloon payment at the end, when the buyer cashes you out, that's when the title officially transfers over to the buyer. Now, if you own a property free and clear, you could opt to allow a buyer to take title, but then if they default, now you have to foreclose, and that's a very expensive process. So it's not, in my experience, it's not in the seller's best interest to allow title to transfer when it hasn't been paid in full.
That's good. Question?
It just depends, but I mean, if it'll cash flow as a rental, like I'll hold it as a rental. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, so right now we have one single family in Chalmette, and we have 3 doubles in New Orleans. And we self-manage, so I acquired all of those in different ways. My very, very first rental, I acquired from a wholesaler. Went and looked at the property. This was my first like finance deal, y'all. So I went and looked at the property. I wrote the offer. I signed the offer, and I turned to my husband and said, now I have to go find the money. Because I didn't have all the money. I didn't know how I was going to get the money. And truthfully, a lot of lenders, because the property was only $85,000, but I knew what it would be worth once I got in there, because I was going to do the renovations out of pocket. It was only going to need maybe $7,000, $8,000 worth of renovation. So I went to a few different lenders. They were all, no, it's too small of a loan. We're not going to be able to do it. 4 lenders told me no. So I went back to the wholesaler and said, look, this is the issue I'm running into. Worst case scenario, I have excellent credit. I'll just go borrow the extra $50,000 that I need. I'll take out a personal loan. I don't care. He was like, well, I don't think you have to do that. So he ended up saying, hey, my partners, they have a lender out of New York. I think they'll do it. And that's how I was able to get my first rental property that way. 2 of my doubles I acquired with seller financing. And I was able to get some pretty good terms on those. And my most recent one was actually my very first burr. And it was very successful. So that property actually cash flows way more than any of my other properties, because I bought it right and put the right amount of money into it, and it ended up appraising for $12,000 more than I thought it was going to appraise for. So I went to the bank, did a DSCR loan. If y'all haven't done one of those, very, very simple process to do. So I was able to pay back the hard money lender, and I actually had a private lender on that lended me the down payment. So I was able to just go and pay everybody back. Now I have a 30-year mortgage on this property that's cash flowing almost $1,000 a month in this market.
With insurance? With the insurance crisis?
With the insurance. Now, it hasn't renewed yet, so we'll see what happens. But for right now, it's cash flowing almost $1,000 a month.
Good question, Steve. So on the buy side, do you negotiate for title to transfer if it is a buy for deed?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I just haven't really fought for it. I mean, I figured, so you have to do, if you're going to be doing a bond for deed or seller financing, you have to do it the right way, right? Like, don't just be paying Joe Blow $2,000 a month and he's taking and putting the money in his pocket. We have a third-party escrow company that deducts the money from my bank account every single month. If the seller has a mortgage, they mail off a check to the mortgage company. If anything is left, the seller gets that in their pocket. That way, the seller knows every single month that mortgage is getting paid like clockwork. And I know that the mortgage is getting paid like clockwork, right? Because that's important for me. I don't want to be, having tenants in a house and the seller's pocketing the money, and now we got a foreclosure on our hands because the seller wasn't paying. So having that third-party escrow company and a really good attorney that actually knows how to properly structure a bond for deed is very important.
And what questions is important for the investor to ask while putting that bond for deed together? So a current mortgage, that's very important. What else, what other information is important to ask for when structuring that type of deal?
You want to know, obviously, what your interest rate's going to be. And you want to know when that balloon payment, if you have one, when that balloon payment is due. Because you have to make sure that you're able, when that time comes, when that 3 years, 5 years, 10, 15, 30, whatever you negotiated, when that time comes, you have to make sure that you're in a position to get yourself out of that loan with the seller. Because if not, you're going to be in trouble. If they don't want to extend, all that money that you just put into the property reverts to the seller.
Good. Next question. Yep.
Absolutely. That's actually something I'm working on right now.
Well,
is getting a line of credit.
The question was, I'm sorry, I forgot. The question was, have you ever thought of using a line of credit versus using hard money lenders? That or banks?
Yes, absolutely. So again,
Yeah.
it's something I'm working on is leveraging the income from my business to be able to go into the bank and get the line of credit and use that as cash to fund my projects.
Yep. Well, Angel is going to stick around. I don't know if you'll make it to happy hour, but she will be in the room if you have any more questions. Everybody, please give a loud Westbank Real Estate Investors. Thank you, Angel, for your time and your advice.